I'm sick of the jelly propaganda. I'm sick of it. Excuse me, can somebody tell me where the mess went? Because it's all just a little bit too clean for me. Hi guys, welcome back to the Shannon Show podcast. Hello if you're new. So today's podcast is going to be a review of Love Island USA Season 2, Episode 27. I hope everybody is doing as well as can be, and I really do hope everybody is being as proactive as possible in supporting the Black Lives Matter movement. And if you're still on the lookout for some resources, I've linked some in the description. Feel free to comment down below your thoughts on my commentary. I'm always up for a chat, I'm always up for a debate. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you didn't, give it a dislike. No hard feelings. So, episode 27. It's a bit of a boring one, but I'm here anyway, so let's just talk about it. Let's have a little bit of fun. So, we're obviously continuing the bombshells dropping in, Julia and Lakin, and the boys' faces were actually really funny. Calvin's face, the Calvin's comical face is continuing. He is just like, a kid in a sweet shop. He's just enjoying. His eyes are wide open. His mouth is wide open. He's not even trying to keep it cute. He's just there to enjoy. He's single and he's just there to enjoy. What is also funny is that you could see like Caleb and Johnny were both like visibly trying not to look like they were enjoying it. They were both like holding their breath, which I found was very funny. And Bennett was also trying to keep composure. And I was just like, girl, you only even known Kirsten 2 seconds. You don't need to be trying to act like you're her man and you need to behave. Just enjoy it. Just enjoy it, babe. So obviously, again, we get a little snippet of the new girls in the confessional talking their shit, talking about how they're going to step on people's toes, blah, blah, blah. You know, the same old shit that we hear all the time. And then obviously, after everything, they sit down in a little pit and the new girls are asked who they're interested in. And Lakin initially says Johnny, but I don't think Johnny was ever going to go there because I just think his eyes are on the prize now. And he's going to play it smart from now on. And obviously with the developments in this episode, my suspicions were right, but I'll talk about that a bit later. And Julia says Bennett. So then we see the results for the heart rate challenge, which was a bit interesting. So the results came in. So Justine, her heart rate was raised the most by Carrington. And I'm not surprised because the hips didn't lie, Shadi. And, she's half Congolese. We got a little thing for the water waste. So I think it was the Congolese in her that's the reason why her heart rate was so high for Carrington. So there was no surprises there for me. Then Maura's heart rate was raised the most by Caleb, which I thought was interesting because I'm just like, Maura, I really don't know you, girl. You are so confusing because Caleb was pretty stiff, to be honest. So I'm like, but she was turned on the most by that? What? Moira. She's a funny girl, isn't she? So then Kirsten's result was Carrington, which was pretty obvious. Then Laurel's heart rate was raised the most by Calvin, which was quite interesting. Because I felt like Carrington put in work, to be honest, but so did Calvin. Calvin was out here performing. So I'm also not surprised that she was, was turned on the most by Calvin. And then Sally's heart rate was raised the most by Johnny. That's not really a surprise. He was putting in work. So I'm not surprised that her heart rate was raised the most by him. Then we get the boys' results. And the boys' results were as follows. Carrington's heart rate was raised the most by Lakin, which I thought was quite interesting because I thought Kirsten put in work, to be honest, but he does like blondes. That's what he said his type is. So I think maybe that's why. I mean, to be fair, Lakin did put it in work, but I feel like Kirsten put in a bespoke experience. So I was a bit disappointed that she wasn't the highest results because I just feel like they should just get back together, to be honest. I'm sick of these boring girls, to be honest. I'm sick of them. So I think, and Bennett is boring as well. So I think I would just rather see Kirsten and Carrington back together. So Bennett was raised the most by Julia. I don't really know what his type is, so I wouldn't have been surprised who raised his heart rate. Um, then Calvin's heart rate was raised the most by Sally, which was interesting. Calvin likes a little bit of Sally. Ooh, interesting information. What are we thinking about that? What are we thinking about that? I'm guessing Calvin does like a little bit of spice, you know. So, Johnny's heart rate was raised the most by Sally. That doesn't surprise me. Sally was putting in work. She was dipping it low. She was doing the split shady. Um, but this was a surprise. Caleb's result. Caleb says, I gotta hear from you guys. Caleb's heart rate was raised the most by Laurel. And when they said Laura, I was like, huh? What? After Justine gave that bespoke experience, dropping it low, she had her leg up in the air, and Laurel, who was just basically jumping up and down and doing an awful slut drop, got your heart rate pumping more than Justine. I ain't gonna lie, I was just a bit like, this is very interesting information. Obviously, it's not, scientifical fact. This is just a casual link here. But, I mean, it's very surprising that Justine wasn't the person who got his heart rate pumping. And even if it wasn't Justine, it was Laura of all people. Very interesting information. But I gotta hear from you guys. What do you think it was? Why do you? He said it's because he was surprised by Laura, but I don't buy that. I'm sorry, I don't. I don't. But I don't. I don't think this necessarily means that he's into Laura, but I think this whole I was just surprised by Laura. I don't really buy that. But yeah, what do you guys think? So, after the challenge, Moira is now interested again in Calvin, which, again, I just really can't keep up with this girl. I really cannot. I mean, fair enough if Calvin was the person who raised her heart rate the most, but he wasn't. So, it's kind of like, what? What? I mean, I just feel like Moira really is just enjoying this holiday. She doesn't want to leave, so she's just hanging on to Calvin. She's just really doing what she has to do to stay in, girl. You know what? I can respect the hustle. I can respect the hustle. But I kind of feel like Calvin has peeped her. Obviously, she was putting it on that same night as well. And Calvin was like telling the boys like, "Oh, she's suddenly now putting it on me. Now these new girls have come. I'm a little bit suspicious." But I think Calvin is loving the attention as well. He's loving it. Moira, I see you, girl. So then we see Carrington basically say that he's interested in Lakin, but still likes Laurel, and probably his head isn't probably going to turn, which I just thought was suspicious. And I kind of thought, let me continue watching. And Laura was kind of getting a little bit suspicious. You can tell she's getting a little bit agitated, but she's still trying to keep it cute. So we see Carrington speak to Laurel, but honestly, obviously I've already said in my podcast I think Laura is boring, but I think this Lakin girl is more boring than Laurel. So when Carrington was talking about how he had a connection with her, I was just like, what? Because if it's a battle of the blondes, I think Laurel tops looks and personality. So I was just a bit confused. Obviously, I'm kind of thinking maybe it's the connection with the how they have like a similar upbringing. They both have relatives. They both have close relatives with autism, and they can relate to that. So I'm thinking maybe that's why. And the fact that she doesn't live in Alabama, sorry, I feel like Laurel living in Alabama has really, I mean, she can't help where she lives, but I have a feeling Carrington is just like, Alabama? Alabama? He ain't feeling Alabama. You can tell he's not feeling Alabama. But obviously, again, at this point, he says it's not going anywhere. Then we see Julia speak to Carrington, and initially I kind of thought that conversation went a bit better. It kind of seemed a bit more organic, but obviously there's some developments later down the line, which I'll talk about. Notably, Johnny says that he's all about Sally, and what I found very interesting is that he mentions that they only have a limited amount of time together. So to me, obviously, Johnny is a big game player. He might like Sally, but I feel like he's not a genuine guy, and he is just using Sally to get to the bag. And his eyes on the bag, because he's talking about limited time. He's counting down the days that he has to behave for so that he can secure the bag, because he can smell the money. And he's got his game face on. And it's very obvious by the developments in this episode, which I'll get on to. So, now we see a little chat between Jaleb. Justine's kind of talking about how she kind of wants a bit more initiated affection from Caleb, because she kind of feels like it's usually her coming up to him. And he says, you know, thank you for telling me. You know, obviously we can work on this now. And I thought that was quite interesting, because I kind of felt like maybe she was feeling a little bit insecure because of the heart rate challenge, and the fact that his heart rate wasn't raised the most by her despite her doing bits. So I think maybe that's why she was feeling a little bit down, to be honest. I think maybe that was the real reason. But what do you guys think? Do you think it was just that, or maybe she was kind of thinking a bit too much about the heart rate challenge? I'd be interested to hear from you guys. So, Calvin and Julia talk, and you could just tell that Calvin is just eating up the attention. He is loving being well sought out after. He should enjoy it while it lasts. So, then we see Laken talk to Bennett, and again, it just confirmed to me that Laken is boring. Yeah. She's just a bit too chill for me. She's just like, you know, yeah, I like to go traveling. Yeah. But yeah, do let me know how you feel about this Laken girl. Are you finding her interesting? I'd be interested to hear from you guys. Then we get a date text where the new girls get to pick a boy for a date, and they both pick Carrington. And he is just loving the attention. He's walking out the villa with both of them on his arm. It's just typical Carrington. And Laurel is obviously pressed, because now she's like, now I got fucking 2 bitches to fight with. So then we see the date, and the date setup is so weird, because it's like when one girl was on a date, the other girl was like on another table across the room, just like sitting there, and it's just like a very weird transition. Like, you see them on a date, and then you just see a wide shot, and the other girl's just there, like, twiddling her fingers, like, what is this? So, in terms of the dates, Julia and Carrington seem very friendly with each other, but it just kind of feels like a friendly vibe. But when Carrington is with Laken, suddenly he does that thing where he makes his voice deeper, and he starts to be a bit more macho. And he basically tells Laken that he prefers her. And I think maybe he really does like blondes. Like, he's in that stage in his life where he's like, I like blondes, and they are the most attractive people, so that's who I'm drawn to. I personally prefer Julia, looks wise and personality wise, but you know, each to their own. He says he likes blondes. And what's quite cheeky on the date is that he basically says that he's not going to move to Alabama. He's not really feeling Alabama, which is where Laura is from. He's never going to move there. And I think he basically just like insulted Alabama. I think he said Booney Town or something like that. I don't know what that means, but I just kind of feel like he's basically just cussing out Alabama, you know? So, like I said in my prior podcast, Carrington ain't going to see Laura and no Alabama, shawty. So this is just confirmed, but I gotta hear from you guys. People from Alabama, Are you feeling a type of way about how Carrington has just cussed out the place where you staying at? I gotta hear from you guys. I gotta hear from you guys. Laurel is obviously pressed about Carrington going on a date, and obviously him just being Carrington. And she is in her feelings and she's talking to Calvin about it. I thought maybe she would be seeing what Calvin is saying, but it kind of just seems like the same old where people just divulge information onto people. Um, and she's just basically upset about how Carrington is now telling this new girl who barely knows his personal business, like how his relative has autism. And I can understand why she feels a type of way, but I can also understand why Carrington might felt like he could open up to this person and not Laurel because they're in a similar situation. I think in general, it's always better to talk about situations with somebody who has direct experience with it. When you're talking about it with somebody who doesn't have the same experience as you, it just doesn't hit. And this could be applicable to all different types of things. But I can understand why she's in her feelings about it. But she's basically just like, she hopes she doesn't get ditched, and she's talking about if she gets ditched and she's gonna go home. And I'm just like, sis is clearly in her feelings, but I think she is gonna get ditched. Whether she'll go home after being ditched or pursue Calvin instead is a different story. I personally don't think she'll leave. I think if Carrington does ditch her, she'll go for Calvin. That is what I predict. But I'd be interested to hear from you guys. Do you think Laura will actually leave? Or nah? Let me know. So, then we have the beginning of the jelly agenda. I felt it coming, and it seems to be coming again. Johnny has now decided that he is going to ask Sally to be his girlfriend, and that he's now going to set up this, this really big proposal that you often see on Love Island. They're very big on girlfriend/boyfriend proposals, or I love you proposals. So obviously we're going to get a big production. So we are going to get a little bit of a jelly agenda edit. What's quite interesting is that when Johnny was telling Justine and Caleb about it, they kind of zoomed into Caleb's face. He kept his face cute, but I peeped it. And I think Caleb was kind of just like, oh, for fuck's sake, he got there before me. Because obviously, on paper, Caleb and Justine are the top couple. They kind of know that they are the top couple, and they probably insinuate that they are the top couple and the favourite. So it would have made sense for them to be the first official couple, like boyfriend and girlfriend. And now kind of Johnny's kind of beat him to that. So I think he was just like a little bit like, I was planning to do that, and now you beat me to it, Because it's like now they're the first couple to do it. So I think it's always going to hit when that time comes. I'm guessing it's going to be within the next week. Caleb is going to ask Justine to be his girlfriend. And that's going to be a beautiful moment. But of course, it's always nice to be the first one to do it. So I think Caleb was a little bit pressed that Johnny beat him to it. But what do you think? Do you think I'm reading too much into things? Or do you think Caleb was a little bit like, dang, I wanted to be the one to do it first? So, obviously, then we kind of see Sally talking about how she hopes that it works out with Johnny on the outside. And Justine is just talking about how, I love how you guys have gone through so much and been managed to get to this point where you are now. And it's just like drivel. It's just drivel. I get Justine doesn't know all of the details. But yeah, I was just like, this propaganda. I'm not here for it. I'm sick of the jelly propaganda. I'm sick of it. Obviously, then the new girls come back from their... So after that, the new girls come back from their date. And obviously, Julia has already peeped that there's no connection between her and Carrington. The feeling is mutual. Both Carrington and Lakin say that they've got a connection. Laurel, she's still in her feelings, but she's kind of like trying to like hype herself up and say, this will be a good test for their relationship. But bless this, because she really does think that they have like a serious relationship. Like, babe, there's barely a relationship there. So Lakin then tells Laurel respectfully that she's gonna steal her man. And then Carrington tells Laurel that he is in fact interested in Lakin. And then Laurel calls Carrington out for being closed off. He explains himself. Obviously, I've already explained why I don't think if it's a big of a deal, but I can understand why Laurel may take it as a certain way. But actually, I'd be interested to hear from you guys. Do you think it's fishy that Carrington has opened up so much to this new girl that he barely knows? Or do you understand why he has done it? Or do you think like Laurel definitely has a point here? Or do you think you understand why Carrington did it, but you understand why Laurel feels the type of way? Hopefully I haven't confused you. But let me know what you think. And yeah, Carrington basically says that he wants to sleep on it, but I feel like he is gonna ditch. I feel like he might, because I just feel like he isn't really satisfied in this relationship. He's been trying to make it work. They've been in the bottom. There's not really much incentive for them to stay together, to be honest, on his part anyway. So obviously, next episode, they are continuing the jelly agenda. I kind of just wanted them to get it over and done with this episode, but they're dragging it on to the next episode. And I just kind of feel like it's going to be another boring episode. Like, there was hardly any mess. Laurel is just too nice for there to be any mess with this whole love triangle situation. Laken is being nice. It's just like, I want the drama. Can, like, somebody cheat on somebody again? Like, something. Something. I'm starved. I'm dying for it. But I guess it is it's not just a drama show. It is about love as well. But it's getting a bit boring now. It's getting a bit boring. I'm team mess. But I'd be interested to hear from you guys. What do you think about the developments in this episode? Of course, let me know what your thoughts are on my commentary. Do you think Carrington is going to leave Laurel? What do you think is going to go on with Julia? Because that's kind of just up in the air now. Is she going to pursue Bennett? Is she going to pursue Calvin? What's going to go on with Maura and Calvin? Is Calvin going to entertain this relationship with Maura? Is he going to kind of kick her to the curb? And what do you think about this kind of jelly agenda going on? What do you guys think about it? And do you feel like Johnny is playing the game here, asking Sally to be his girlfriend? Or do you feel like he genuinely does want Sally as a girlfriend? I'd be interested to hear from you guys. And and how many days do you think it's going to be for Caleb to do the same? Because I feel like now that Johnny has done it, it's only a matter of time before Caleb does it as well. But yes, subscribe if you haven't yet. And if you have, don't forget to put those notifications on so you know when the next podcast is dropping. I'm also trying to get to 1.8k. We are almost at the halfway mark. I'd appreciate if you help me out with that goal. And thank you to everyone who has subscribed so far. Till next time, guys. Bye.